Alright, let's look at the homework 4.1, 4.2, problem number 10. Alright, so we want to find the absolute max and absolute min value of this given function. Alright, so let's do that. Alright, so we need to find a critical number, so we take the derivative. So f prime of t is equal to, right, then 2 is just a constant multiple. Derivative of cosine is negative sine of t plus, right, derivative of sine of 2t would be, all right, derivative of sine is cosine, so you have a cosine of 2t, right, but you need to multiply by derivative of 2t, which is 2, so I put 2 in front, right, so that's the derivative, right. Then you have, let's see, we need to rewrite this guy. All right, first, cosine of 2t, let's see, right? Cosine of 2t, right, can be written as, let's see, cosine squared of t minus sine of squared of t, right? Since this term is written in terms of sine, I'm going to turn this into a sine. So this is going to be cosine squared would be 1 minus sine squared of t. Then you have another minus sine of 2t, so sine squared of t. So make that 2. All right. So what you get is I'm going to pull out negative 2 from here. Right, so this would be sine of t, right, so negative 2, so it's a negative cosine would be negative, that would be minus 1 plus 2 sine squared of t, right, and I'm gonna just reorder them, so it's negative 2, right, so 2 sine squared of t plus sine of t minus 1. Right, this can be factored out as 2, right, so split that into, let's see, you have 2 sine of t and also sine of t, right, so we can put plus 1 here and a minus 1 here. So negative 1 times positive 1 gives you negative 1. And 2 times 1 is 2 plus negative 1 is positive 1. So that should work out. Right, we set that equal to 0 to find critical numbers. Right, so we can see that there are a couple conditions we can get. We can make this guy equal to 0, which means that the sine of t is equal to 1/2, and from here you have a sine of t is equal to negative 1, right? Right, if you want sine of t is equal to 1/2, so the angle t would be, right, so let's draw a unit circle. So if you draw a unit circle, something like that, then you have, so this is y and x-axis and origin, and here's the unit circle. All right, and sine corresponds to y value, so we want y value to be 1/2, so which means that you're going to have 1/2 right here, right? Then you're looking at the angle like that, which is pi over 6, right? And or you can have an angle like that too, but that's going to be over pi over 2, so it's too big anyway, so that will be pi over 6, right? And the sine of t is negative 1, so angle would be right here, so it's negative 1. Right, this angle is too big, and or negative pi over 2, so it's not in there. So we don't have to consider that. So the only critical number we have within 0, between 0 and pi over 2 would be this guy. All right, so we have to consider 3 different numbers here. 0, left endpoint, and pi over 6, which is a critical number, and pi over 2, which is the right endpoint. Right, so let's compute f of 0 and f of pi over 6, and also f of pi over 2. Right, so if you plug in 0, cosine of 0, so it's a 2 times cosine of 0 plus sine of 2 times 0 is 0, right? Sine of 0 is 0, cosine of 0 is 1, so it's 2. All right, pi over 6, so we have 2 cosine of pi over 6 plus sine of, right, so you have to multiply by 2, so it's a pi over 3. All right, so that's going to be, right, 2 times cosine of pi over 6 would be square root of 3 over 2 plus sine of pi over 3 would be square root of 3 over 2. All right, so 2's cancel out. All right, and this is going to be square root of 3 plus square root of 3 over 2, right? Or this is 3 square root of 3 over 2, right? And if you evaluate at pi over 2, so you have 2 cosine of pi over 2 plus sine of pi, because you have to multiply by 2. Right, so you have cosine of pi over 2 is actually 0, and the sine of pi is 0, so it's actually 0. All right, so you can see that the smallest value would be this guy, so this is the absolute minimum. All right, then the largest value would be, let's see, I think this is bigger than 2, so this is going to be the absolute maximum. Right, so let's type it in. All right, so absolute minimum value was 0, and absolute max value was 3 square root of 3 and over 2. All right, let's check the answer. All right, it came back, and looks like we got these guys correctly. All right, that's it. I hope that this was clear.